We are live on LinkedIn. Wow. Thank you so much for being with us, Luke. It's such a pleasure. I've been chasing you to be with us on my LinkedIn Live so that we can talk a little bit about what is growth hacking. You are a reference for us here in Switzerland. And I mean, us founders, us startuppers, anyone who tries to, hack the digital marketing space is following what you're doing. Also, you are the host of the probably the largest meetup out there called Growth Hackers, and I don't miss a single one of these meetings because they are so much fun. And yeah, so I thank you so much for being with us. Maybe I introduce you real quick and then I give the floor to you. But so Luke has always been in marketing, but before marketing, he was a web developer. So he's been in banking, he's been in agencies, but always I think taking marketing from a very digital, data-driven, I would call it more hardcore approach, because yeah, there's two lines of marketing, but I think you've managed also to group product into all of this. I won't say more because I might be overstepping my boundaries here. But thank you so much, and go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the introduction, and thanks for the invitation. And I'm impressed with your setup already. I know you started this recently, so well done on your amazing start, and thanks for having me. And to the introduction, I mean, it was a long journey, but I think the meetup is probably like the closest one to the community, and also a good outlet for me to go out there and meet people, and also a little bit give back to the community, because we see that with the work on clients on a day-to-day basis, we are not able to always share what we do because of confidentiality. Yeah. So I think the meetup is a really good place to also in public explore new ideas and share knowledge, stuff that we don't normally do on the client project.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you want to know. I mean, I don't know what you want to know. We can dive into.
Well, let's start with what is growth hacking. Maybe we start there. What is for you, and how do you apply this?
Well, I mean, there are many definitions, and everyone kind of creates a little bit their own. And also, the term got diluted a little bit over the years because it was really initially, like in mid 2000, it was primarily related to product development. So it was, how do you create growth by making product intrinsically kind of scalable? So you were implementing these hacks, which means that you tweak the product so that it grows by itself. But the early growth hacks are actually all related to software development and product development. So the way Craigslist hacked their initial user base was through injecting some code into another website. Airbnb injected code into Craigslist website to promote their properties. But today, I would say, after all the years, and the best way for me to understand growth hacking is really to look at mindset. So I look at a mindset that is oriented on growth. And it's surprising how few people actually think like this. So when we meet clients or founders, a lot of them, they kind of want to grow, but they're focused on, compliance or brand awareness, creatives, or what Facebook tells them or Meta tells them. Actually, they don't think of, okay, I just want to grow. Like, what are the best levers I have? Is it the product, landing page, or a partnership? So it's kind of like looking at this mindset and kind of broad scope to look for growth ideas. And I think that's what we primarily do with clients. And some of the clients, they get it, and we these are typically most challenging clients at the same time, because if they understand it, then we are kind of always on the edge of what's possible.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the most challenging, and it's most, I would say, innovative approaches to growth hacking. But it's really about, not following the rules a little bit. So you have to be, it's subversive. You cannot just do everything by the book. So if you're a growth hacker, you don't necessarily read Google guidelines and recommendations to implement them. You
Yeah.
read Google guidelines to understand what's possible,
Yeah.
and then you try to find holes in them, or you try to a little bit, be on the edge. So, for instance, I can give you an example. We with cosmetic products, like the policy at Meta and Google is that you cannot show before and after images. So if you're promoting a cosmetic product, it's not allowed to show like, okay, this was before, this is after. And if you are very clean and you just follow the rules, you will never create this type of creatives, because Google doesn't allow you to do that. But if you think like a growth hacker, you're like, okay, it's not possible. Let me try it out. What is before and after image? Is it now you see before, then you see after in one picture, or is it
Oh.
you show the before image in the creative, and you show the after image on the landing page, or maybe you show a blurry before picture, and after is kind of a little bit blurry, but maybe less. So there are many interpretation of that rule, and I know you can get away with it. And you can get away with it for a long time. And this is the type of things that we're looking for, because it's kind of a game in the end. I mean, and that's, you can play that game, or you can pay a lot of money if you don't.
Yeah. But is this okay? I have to tell people, for those who don't know Luke, so he got to Switzerland, learned German, became a founder, and it's not very common to see non-Swiss founders in Zurich. And so do you think that because of your background coming from Poland and having to kind of like navigate, I mean, I'm from Brazil, so I can relate to finding ways through, the established path, because you had to be creative for your own career. Would you apply that also to your clients' projects?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I carry this like Polish, let's say, roots within me for sure. So I mean, I haven't lived in Poland since 2004. It was almost 20 years now. But of course, like I grew up in a system where the rules did not make any sense, and you had to break rules to kind of survive and to make a living. It was very common, in like communist Poland. I mean, people built houses with the stuff they took away from their jobs, construction jobs, right? So like trading, and they were taking stuff from work to build their homes, right? And I think it was just everybody did it. And I think that kind of mindset. It doesn't mean like and that's so important to know. I mean, it's very big contrast to Switzerland, where the rules make sense, and people grow up in an environment where you have to be kind of compliant. It makes sense to be compliant. You're rewarded for being compliant with the rules, and I think that is probably less typical in Switzerland, because I think local professionals, they are more likely probably to. But I don't have any stats to support it. It's just my feeling. When I compare it, let's say we sometimes work with international companies. The Eastern Bloc probably, if you look at culture, they definitely care less about rules. They are more focused on that growth. So that contributes. But I think it's important also to point out that we don't do anything that is illegal, right? I mean,
no, of course not. But
you are
outside
kind
of
of
the box,
you are playing the game just differently, and you think for yourself, and you can try to beat kind of the system a little bit, right? So that's the idea.
Do you have any case that you're really proud of that you might want to share of a client who was able to grow fast under your leadership, or perhaps yourself, your own company? I suppose you have to show the way.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the biggest one, I think it's actually Philabe of Switzerland. So we did that, and I think it's a public case also on our website. And I think that's definitely the one I'm most proud of, because we started when they really struggled to gain kind of efficiency in their media spend. And I think that's where we also tested the borders, what's possible with Meta, and also like we use data a lot to help them find growth levers to actually scale into other countries. So we started when they were just in Switzerland and actually very inefficient in Germany, and we kind of turned it around, and they became very successful in both countries and expanded later to Austria. So it's a really nice example of how we can kind of use the data. And I think the one thing that we did there, and also with most clients, actually, this is probably one of the biggest tips for everybody, is that making more radical changes pays off. So I think these tweaks, people sometimes optimize their campaigns forever, and then they make like little changes to gain 2-3%. But actually, the biggest like growth hacks come from more radical changes. Like if someone, actually you have to be kind of braver, turn something off, or completely
Yeah.
really allocate your budget, and then you see like bigger swings in your
Yeah.
performance, and you start learning, because you don't really learn if you, let's say, spend 100,000 and maybe you change the allocation of 5 or 10,000 of that
Yeah.
spend, or even if you spend less, like only 2,000 a month, and if you reallocate 500, it's probably not difficult to see the difference, because maybe there are other factors that come in, and you really don't really see what caused the
Yeah.
change,
The
or
shift.
the impact. Yeah. So I think it's important to make like these bigger swings, like you really try something completely new, or you turn it off and put money somewhere else, and then you see, oh, what I was doing actually, did it have even like a positive impact, right? So I think it's nice to
Yeah.
make these big changes, and that's what. And of course, we look at data first, right?
But you would call yourself a growth hacking agency, because you have been designing web pages. You've been you mentioned that you utilize the lean startup approach, and you're mostly catering to startup founders, and then you add to this the growth hacking strategies, or if you want to call it maybe product marketing. I
Yeah.
don't know which. So you're not really the typical content creator type media agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very good question, because I think it's a interesting point. I would say, and I read it somewhere, and I like this quote from another industry. Basically, as a growth hacker, we kind of specialize in every marketing channel, because as a
Okay.
growth hacker, you have to specialize in all channels. Like you cannot say, oh, I'm good at Google Ads, but we don't really dive into
Do.
influencer marketing, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Yeah.
So
For example.
so
Yeah.
if you come to us, you expect very good high level of service in all of the possible channels.
Channels. Okay.
So it could be, we could run Twitter ads, TikTok ads, we could create content for SEO, where we could also automate it, we can create landing pages, optimize user journeys. So the actual scope of the channels is unlimited, or
Yeah.
limited by what's available out there. And we also do a lot of international projects. So if there is a campaign in Czech Republic, we'll also look at what media, what influencers are big in Czech Republic, and we will work with them.
Yeah.
So it's really very, very broad, which some people think, oh, how can you actually do this? Because that's sometimes the question. But
Yeah.
before I answer that, also in terms of who we serve, it's interesting, because this approach, and we initially thought it was really just for startups. And when we introduced the offering in 2015 with like lean startup, and combined with kind of rational growth approach to scaling and marketing, a
Yeah.
lot of SMEs actually fit into that category in Switzerland, at least, because we
Yeah.
see that SMEs are really smart. Like they are actually operating, a lot of them operate as startup founders in terms of their mindset and ambitions. So we have in Switzerland tons of SMEs that are, incredibly, like, run by incredibly bright people, very modern, very agile, with cash reserves, sometimes bigger than VC funding of these startups, and they have ideas to implement. So we actually love working with SMEs because we really use, and they love the lean startup method. I mean, in Switzerland, I mean, it's quite, if you look at good business, using data to make decisions,
Yeah.
iterating fast, failing forward, all
Yeah.
these principles of lean startup. Some companies just have it in their culture, in their DNA. So we look for companies like this, and we work in partnership with them. So that approach, I don't think it's exclusive to just founders of startups. And we, but this is of course our like bread and butter business, to help startups design their product, develop and grow. We don't necessarily always work across the whole life cycle of the product.
Yeah.
We have clients who come to us just with the business idea, and maybe we just help them to design the product, and they do development, or they have a product designed and they just want to launch it with us, or they have everything ready and they just want to help with let's say growth or scaling. So there are different constellations, and we're kind of, we of course love to work with clients on both product and growth at the same time, because it gives us a little bit more
Yeah. Of course.
scope, and also it's faster for the
Yeah.
client to implement product changes. If we find, let's say, growth hacks in that relate to product, then we can also immediately like work with the product team to implement them, to create like mock-ups and things like that. So it really, there is some economies of scale in that.
You develop the web pages, but also the apps, or you
Yeah,
have a development?
we have quite a few examples of native apps, and platforms, like more complex platforms as well. So web applications. I mean, most of our, let's say, clients are more demanding in terms of web applications. So they're not like, let's say, just basic WordPress websites. They're normally either with some business logic behind it, either like marketplace platform. Watch Angels is a good example. We developed their platform. It's a crowd manufacturing platform for watches, and it's really interesting project. And this is like a really bespoke product that was built, and it's a good example what you can do with us in terms of e-commerce and bespoke e-commerce.
What's the name of the platform? Sorry, say that
It's
again.
called Watch Angels, and
Okay.
it's Watch Angels, and they are in Switzerland. They're backed by. It's kind of connected to watch manufacturing factory, watch factory, and they basically revive old watch brands
Yeah.
by allowing basically watch enthusiasts to purchase watches at a very low cost, built made in their factory, that kind of are designed by these, let's say, famous designers who used to work on maybe some more famous watch lines for larger brands. So it's a really interesting concept where you can really get some high quality watches, Swiss watches, at a very low percentage of
Very low.
the retail.
Yeah, I think I saw them. How about sales? How far do you get into sales? Not at all. I mean, somehow, of course, you probably build sales funnels, right?
Yeah.
Which I understand it to be like a series of landing pages, but maybe I'm wrong about that. If I wanted to build a sales funnel for people to come to my app, like I would come
Yeah.
to you with that. Would
Well, I
be
think it
something.
depends. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have very nice, I think this is maybe something that it's worth explaining, because we work across number of industries and also sizes of clients, but our method is very similar for all of them. but they still get a bespoke solution. So we kind of have this consultancy element at the beginning. So we normally look at assessment of the project. So we go through kind of this discovery phase at the beginning to really understand, based on data. So we get access to the data. We sign an NDA and we look at your data to basically see things that you don't know, maybe even, because some founders, a lot of founders who come to us, they're like intimidated by the data, or maybe they don't have the time to look at it. So we basically, first thing we do, we get access to everything they have, like, from GA4 to Search Console, their dashboards, email, marketing, everything they can deliver. And then we crawl through that and we basically make sense of that information. And then we look at what they told us as well, what goals they have. And just that first experience, because that's normally the first project that we do. It's a very small project normally, but it's kind of sometimes the most enlightening kind of aha moment for our clients, because they look at their business from a different perspective, and they see, wow, I did not know that my actually 80% of my customers went through that page or went through that campaign. And I think that's where we start normally. And then depends on the channel, what the channel is. So if it's the sales challenge, then we look at, how can we improve, their performance. So, the solution could be different. I mean, we have one client that is an international company from Silicon Valley, and they're a B2B solution for enterprise clients. And they have an extremely active sales team. And in this case is also on our website. So they have an extremely active sales team, and we help them. And they also use like Sales Navigator, all the tools that are possible on LinkedIn. But our job with them is to help them penetrate larger enterprise companies, to basically create relationships and more connections in those businesses that the sales team would normally not come across. So we would create content that is like really like more specific, or maybe not targeting, let's say, the purchasing department of these companies, but lower level employees who maybe will be familiar with the tool, and then will go to their bosses and so it's not measured. I mean, it's still measured with like MQLs and like other like qualified leads and stuff like that, and we measure pipeline generated. But we kind of, our function there is to support their sales team with creating new opportunities. So it's like a lead generation with a more focus on these specific targets that they have, right? So, but we also have other campaigns that are, where we take over completely lead generation, and they don't have a sales team. So it really depends on what the challenge is, and then we, based on this initial assessment, we plan like a pilot campaign, experiments for the next 3 to 6 months to implement and to see what works.
You know so many founders by now, and you probably have the understanding of when is it time to partner with a co-founder, to get investment from a VC, or I don't know if you work in partnership with the F10. They changed now to Tenity, their branding. But how far can you support founders in establishing beyond just the lead generation and the marketing piece, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing to understand, I mean, Marcus and I, when we work, my business partner Marcus and I, so we're both, really helpful and passionate, and I would say we're on the founder side always. Like we're basically very supportive to them, full stop. I mean, that's where it starts. Like we don't go and think, and I think it's maybe also to do with, we want to work with companies that create something new, and also maybe challenge what's out there already, challenge the status quo and things like that.
Yeah.
So from the outset, we have this mindset that we want to really be helpful. And there is, I think, no time that is too early to come to us. Our clients typically are already have financing, so or in stage of securing financing. That's our kind of, let's say, focus, because that's when we can really do something for them that is, let's say, actually in terms of building and generating growth. But we have also always encourage people in early stages to come to us, because I mean there's many reasons. I mean, one is learning from us, so we're always open to talk, and we have like friendly lunches, or we even have a product called Power Hour. So we basically, it's like they pay us, I think, 400 francs or something like that, and we just give them 2 hours of our time, and depends on what they want us to look at. They send us a challenge, and we talk for 2 hours to basically give them everything they need to know, like all the tricks of trade or contacts or whatever. And this is sometimes enough for them at the beginning, right? Because 400, they can afford it, and and it's something that they can use. And if they, let's say, already have an idea, and this is another,
I'm going to sign up for that.
And if there's another, like, let's say, scenario where someone already has an idea, and they're already building it, and maybe want to secure funding, but they have not built the MVP yet. It's also not too late, or not too early for us, because what we do a lot is help founders create the right assets so that they can get funding easier. Because we
with
know,
the right pitch.
Yes, it's actually not. It's mostly about data, actually, and product. So a typical case would be, someone comes in and says, I'm working on this. I maybe will use low code solution or whatever to build the product, and we actually can say to them, okay, for X amount, we can actually help you build a prototype professionally, and a base for the future product, so that you can actually scale this. And we also give you a validation of that prototype, so we can run, we call it like a validation campaign. It's not the campaign, the purpose of the campaign is not to, let's say, generate positive return on investment, but just to test different even messages, pricing, audiences, channels. And they take this data, and they have data from the real market, and they can go to the SIGTIC or other like investor clubs, angel investor clubs, and they can say, I have this product, and I tested it with professional measurements, and this is the my growth strategy, because then we help them with that as well. So even if they have no idea about marketing, no idea about product ownership and product like development, because that's sometimes the case. You have like architects or engineers, or you have someone like a scientist working on an app, right? So we can basically do all of that for them, and they get this package. They can go and secure funding with that information. And we had many cases of that, and like there are some of them, like Echo, for example, is on our website also. And I think it's a very good case of a company that followed our method, got funding, and then built the MVP, and then they grew with us. Not all the cases always survive,
become
because
unicorn.
that's something. I mean, it's not something that we can or they can guarantee.
No,
I mean, the statistics are the same actually, but what we do is we speed up this whole process. Like there are some people who work on their idea for like 3 years or 5 years, and I think we can do that in 3 months normally.
Wow, that helps shorten the process.
It's the time, like you don't want to. We sometimes hear someone working on it for like 2 years, and they're using their private money and struggling and so on. We can just shorten that to very short timeline, and then launch it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, they move on to or pivot, right? I mean, that's normally the case.
Are you product led mostly, or are you
Yeah, I
marketing?
mean,
How
well, I mean, product led is kind of, it's a really nice concept where you have like really product selling itself or marketing itself, and we have
yeah,
one larger client right now who they are kind of implementing these principles, but it's not easy because it's not like it doesn't fit every business to go fully, let's say, product led. But I really love these principles,
yeah,
and we are also implementing these principles. I would love to implement these principles in every single business because I think they are really applicable to all companies. And we also implement them at what? We
yeah,
have some product led, even though we are a service company,
yeah,
we have product led principles implemented in our sales process. And I think that's really the takeaway is that maybe you look at product led and then you dig deeper to see how it works. Then you can kind of zoom out and see, okay, what can you actually realistically implement? I'm
yeah,
not a big fan of just like saying, oh, we now switch from sales led to product led, because it's a transition and not everything
yeah.
applies and every business is slightly different. I mean,
Different. Yeah,
I don't have exposure also to thousands of businesses. We work with maybe 20, 30 new clients a year.
yeah,
And we have lots of like existing businesses, but it's not like a huge data sample big enough to say, okay, what's the percentage? But I think everybody can use some of these principles for sure.
yeah. No, I'm just thinking personal branding will have to be top of the list. Like when you think Tesla, Elon Musk, yeah, you don't see ads of Tesla, but Elon is the ad. But yeah, how do you? Can I ask you how much German is required in your line of work? Because
Well,
I know you've learned it,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I would say, mm, yeah, it depends on what clients you're attracting, right? I think we have some clients that are really just they have to speak German, and we have to speak German with them, and there's no other way, and they wouldn't connect with us if this was not the case. So I
yeah,
think they need it, and also yeah, I think larger organizations sometimes, like very Swiss organizations, then they need it. I would say, I have a good mixture of, probably I speak maybe 30% German at the moment, and the rest English. Um, Account managers, project managers, they probably, it's higher, the ratio is higher, more like 70% German and 30% English.
yeah,
Yeah, it's important, I think, if you want to do business with in kind of the German speaking part of
yeah,
Switzerland, then for sure it's a good skill to have.
yeah. Ah,
Why,
yeah.
why this question? Are you
I,
thinking
I'm,
of
I
your
speak
your
with
your own?
founders, and they're always asking about. No, well, I don't think it matters, but I remember you telling me this is the trick. You do the first 10 minutes in German, then switch to English because marketing is English anyways. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I say this always because I think that's how I learned. I don't know if it applies to other people, but my growth hack with German was that we have an office in the co-working space in Limat Platz, and we were like meeting new clients all the time and pitching. So and I wanted to make a good first impression, and my German wasn't very good. So I basically learned how to greet them, how to
yeah,
offer them drinks, how to create a small talk, and take them to the room and talk for intelligently for 5 minutes about what we are trying to do.
yes,
And that I nailed this perfectly
this is
at
NLP growth hacking.
at the C10 level. That was like really amazing.
Yeah,
And then the rest, like as soon as they started asking me about my personal life, it was a little bit more bumpy. But you slowly kind of expand your limits. So I think it was a very good start, because I didn't have patience to learn about how to talk about weather or go to the
yeah,
doctor or vet or something like that. So I think it's just being, again, like using like common sense and kind of data to look at
yeah.
where you focus your energy.
It's energy management. Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast. You're going to launch yet another product. You're such a giver. Well, beyond the meetup group and now the podcast, you were writing a lot of articles at some point. I remember that. So, what are you going to be sharing?
Yeah. So for thank you. I mean, for um, basically, I was looking for a place where I could like a good platform
Yeah.
to share and to also learn, because I see podcasting as an opportunity to both like to share knowledge, but also to get to know people. And I think my longer term goal is to publish something. So I want to publish, and I felt that this was the right time to kind of start talking to people who are already in my network, but
Yeah.
also people who are outside of the network, and I would love to talk to them.
Yeah.
And the topic actually is really exciting, because I think it's something that is very close to me, and my work, and it's really about I mean, the podcast will be called Strength in Numbers,
Okay.
and it's about in data interpretation for people who are not naturally, let's say,
Inclined.
inclined or like gifted
That's
to look at
me.
data. And also, yeah, exactly, like you would be perfect, like creative, and with strong soft skills, but maybe data is not your like forte. But we want
No,
to like I really want to
make it
show
friendly.
in the
Yeah.
podcast that using common sense and applying like some basic rules, you can actually use data to your advantage. And I think this is something for me that will be relevant for many years, because even if we have AI controlling everything, you will still have a room for rational thinking, common sense. And because they are not AI is not very good with common sense, so this is something where humans will have advantage for a long time. And I think if we can also you're able to use data and know where to look for information, to then maybe even use AI to expand. But I think this initial like concept, initial ideas, and kind of looking at the bigger picture, you need some kind of data skills. And that's what we will try to do in the podcast, to show examples of also hacks. I already like looked at some of the interviews that I will have, and I'm really excited because I've seen like synopsis of what we will be discussing, and it's really exciting because it will be like really practical stuff where you can just listen to it and go in and then look at your GA4, or even look at whatever email analytics, and say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. I will do something else and optimize my process. And I think that's what we want to do in the podcast. And yeah, I think it will be incredible, because I think I really didn't have not found anything similar. There's lots of podcasts about successful people,
Yeah.
and I think I don't want to compete there, so I will just create that niche for friendly data approaches,
Management or
and yeah, and targeting exactly people like not scientists, not data scientists, not like
yeah.
geeks, and there will be like probably some geeky content there as well, but I'll try to moderate it so that it's kind of for everybody.
Because that's what you do at the meetup. I was just gonna say what made me addicted to the meetup, that you first the pizza, free pizza
Of
in
course.
here, and the you bring the founders, and then you ask them, don't paint the blue sky, tell us the truth, where is it hurting, can we learn from your mistakes. That made it so relatable, so
Mm.
very, oh yeah, I guess I it's approachable. You're democratizing a lot of that, so that anyone can go out and develop an MVP, and generate growth. So that makes it understandable for most. Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we want to look at things that are not so easy to find, and I think these failures or perceived failures, because I don't believe that there is a really
Yeah.
like a failure. I mean, it's something that people think maybe they failed, but I think sharing that stuff, I think it's really interesting. And also like with the meetup, most people who see us for the first time, as including like those who speak at the event, they think they just go and pitch their startup, and we have to tell them 5 times, it's not a pitching event. Because startups are told always to pitch. I don't care about their pitch. We're like, okay, we're interested in your product, but actually what we want to know is really like where you learned something, and good and bad, and what are your challenges. And I think that was a good focus. And I think with the podcast, I'm sure I'll be experimenting a lot at the beginning, because I still don't know exactly like which format will work. For example, like whether I need to show the screen share and actually go into the tools and stuff. I don't know exactly if we will do that. But for example, one thing I know for sure that will be the kind of also the underlying principle of the podcast. We actually want to kind of kick ass of the big tech companies. Like we really want, I would love, Meta to go down. I would love Google to go down. That would be my dream. If we could talk about democratization. I mean, I would love to create this like movement to actually get people to look at their data and stop looking at what Google tells them, and actually spend money where they can and should be investing money. And I think we can do that in this podcast. We can actually show these nuggets where people can think, okay, I actually don't have to work with Google or spend my 80% of the budget on this agency that is actually pointless. They've been managing the spend for many years, and I could just get rid of that. And I think that's the spirit. I mean, just to democratize that, and also like for the economy, I think it makes a big impact, because what's the good for the Swiss economy if everybody is paying to these Californian-based companies for their media spend, right? And sometimes we often have like companies also competing with each other in Switzerland for the same keyword. Like it makes no sense, So I think it's something that we can do with just more common sense and rational thinking and using data and also innovative ideas to solve some of these issues.
How about so I'm curious about the title of the book you're going to publish one day, but I like strength in number. It really speaks to me. I know you're super data driven. I've always been doing my content in a very sort of organic, authentic way, focusing more on my branding, but also on the product. So my marketing, I don't pay for traffic. If you were to like look into a company that is early stage, so not self-funded, we are profitable, but not yet making tons of profit. But what would be like the 3 hacks that you would like, okay, you need to do, or to pay attention, or to, what would be the three things you would check first, right?
Sure. I think it depends also where you do most of your business, right? I mean, I assume, I'm not sure if it's a website or social media.
Social media, mostly Switzerland.
Okay. Yeah, but I think website, is it an important tool for you?
Not really. It's more like a business card.
Okay, but I think what I would look for in your case is probably, first of all, like and it's very unique, because I mean, as I said earlier, like we do this assessment to actually create like more bespoke strategy. So but on the fly, I could definitely say that, in your case, I would look at also and maybe also in cases of smaller companies where the founder does a lot of work and it's limited in time, of course, I would look at like return on time as well, because you possibly, you do a lot of like posting, meetings, calls, you write, you do this, for example, right? So it takes time to promote, to create banner, to edit and so on, even if you're optimized. I think return on time, it's a good metric to see, where do you actually, not just because even if you don't spend money in terms of media, you pay with your time. So looking at that would be very smart place to start. and optimize to see actually where you get the biggest impact. And if you then look at the list, like for a week you measure, or for a month you do your timesheet, and then we do that also at what, like we have timesheet and controlling. So we would look at, okay, where do we get the biggest impact for our time, or which clients are, the drains, and which ones are the biggest taps, and we just optimize there. We have like, and it's very simple to implement. And then the second part, I would definitely look at the sales funnel, because I don't understand like your business fully. I don't know much. So I would look at, the role of different channels. So what I try to figure out is kind of creating like a bit of mind map of the channels. Like you have LinkedIn here, you have Twitter, you have this, that, you have the website. And what I like to think about is always the role of each channel. Like, what is the role of your LinkedIn? Like, why are you on LinkedIn? And why do you have a website, right? And then if it's just a business card, does it really work today as a business card? So I would look at this. What you tell me might not correspond to the way people
things
use these
are
things, right?
happening.
So that is another really good source of information. So you would say, okay, a business card. So if it's a business card, then I expect people to go there and to call you. Do people go there and call you, or do people go there and leave, or they email you, or exactly how does it look, the sales funnel? And I think for me, like also like challenging these perceptions is really interesting, because for instance, with my LinkedIn, I went through different phases with my own profile, but now I became very inactive on LinkedIn, because I noticed, actually 80-90% of LinkedIn time I spend is a drain for my energy. Like I go to LinkedIn and I see how other people are more successful than I am, and how these people like are doing so well, and it just makes me feel bad. So like I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, why do I have to do this to myself? So I stopped going there, and I only go there to really like post something meaningful or broadcast. And actually, if I also look at connections I get through LinkedIn, the quality of them has been diluting for many years. So just challenging those behaviors, and I think that would be, in the case of a business like yours, would be probably the best starting point to create like a growth plan, and really then see, okay, I know why I'm on LinkedIn. I know I'm doing, this live event, and these are that's the roadmap for these channels to develop in the future, and that's what we kind of look at. And then within those channels, we do experiments, right? So then we experiment and say, okay, if we do it like this, does it give us a bit bigger impact or lower impact, and so on. So we just basically run experiments within those channels later. I hope that answers your question.
That does. Oh my God, I'm taking notes, and I'll be watching this over and over together with my team.
And I think for you, maybe just one more point, or a couple more points. What would be interesting also is to look at like lead magnets. And I think lead magnets are basically like tools that or content that you release where that people are prepared for to pay with their contact details, right? So you show them something that they really, really want, but in exchange they have to give you their details and their contact, right? So I think that's really powerful, and I think it's if you optimize that lead magnet, I think that could be just a single thing that you do, just really create like an amazing lead magnet, because most of the 95% of these lead magnets or more, it's really, really bad. So if you are just like 10% better than them, I mean, you already stand out. And I think the other point, I think what I'd really like to think about in this kind of concept from growth hacking as well is the aha moment. And I think we have it at what, like aha moment is basically time. If you think about your onboarding process or your sales process or your servicing, like provisioning of your service, a client that works with you at some point, they're like, oh wow, this is cool, like this is really good what I receive from Rebeca and her team. And every business has that. Like if you look at every single company, they have an aha moment, but normally most of the companies, they don't have it defined. They don't know, they never thought about what it is. So it could be, first placement of the candidate, or it could be even,
Yeah.
analysis of candidates delivered in a way that they've never seen before, right? Or it
Yeah.
could be the way you onboard them and they make them feel in the first, onboarding call. But for us, for example, at What, we know very well that once the customer see an example, like a pre-project with us, when they do a pre-project with us, because we know we're the best, but they don't know this, right? So
Yes, exactly.
so like if they see the work that we do, like even if it's a small piece of work, they see, oh wow, they're really good. They are probably 30-40% more cost efficient than an average Swiss company, and they really get my business, and they already helped me a lot. Like the time to value is very, very short with that first pre-project. So this is like their aha moment, and they normally, after this pre-project, 95% of the people, they want to work with us. So for us it's like really important to get them through that first project, and I think that is really good strategy and has been working really well.
It's a bit of a digital academy that you've put in place, I suppose, at this point. It's a good lead magnet. But I was going to ask you, because your industry is ever changing and ever evolving, do you feel like you're forced to put yourself in a position of constantly learning and, updating your services and products, and being challenged, I suppose, every time by what your client is aiming to achieve? Because um, those, I don't know if you read that book, the Big Leap. So he talks about the incompetent zone, the competent zone, the genius zone, and then after that, I suppose you go back to beginner, right? Because you've acquired all that knowledge, you're well versed on all of this already. I mean, as a web developer, and then and you understand marketing from a very data focused point. When do you, because I know I make sometimes that mistake to assume I know what your problem is. I get it. I understand it. Don't say a word. and I have to force myself to, like, wait, maybe you missed something, right? Maybe you can I wouldn't reinvent the wheel every time, but I try to 70% stays and 30% is kind of yeah, I guess customized or re-engineered. Do you apply that into your line of work?
Well, it's a good question. I think it's first of all, so try to like answer different parts. But I think that first of all, I love to learn. Like I love learning.
Yeah,
So, and I think we experiment a lot, right? So I think but I do it differently than I did it, let's say 10 years ago. 10 years
yeah,
ago, it was me going into Google Ads interface and setting up something, or doing like link building for an SEO project. Now we have a team, and I kind of use them as my kind of experiments, right? So I tell them, hey, why don't we do this? And they go and do it for a month, and they report back, and I'm like, oh shit, that didn't work. Okay,
yeah,
so I will do something else now, right? So I think, so actually my scope for I'm like a kid in the toy store right now, because I can run these experiments and learn, and I don't have to do them myself, right? So it's like a
yeah,
dream scenario to learn, and I don't learn too much from, let's say, and maybe that's also something that I also want. That's why I want to have the podcast, because I like being also taught by other people, and at the moment, I mean, what the biggest challenges for me are always from clients. So we have
yeah,
some challenging clients. The more challenging client, the more we have to learn, and I think
yeah,
that's where I normally focus my time. But I rarely, let's say, go and read articles, because I think articles, normally there is a lot of like secondary knowledge. It's not really original source or an original knowledge, and I think, like, stuff that chat GPT spits out, for me, it's not really innovative, so that is not going to help me
Yeah.
understand my clients better. So I really run my own experiments. I do it kind of maybe the old school way, the hard way, but I think I like it this way, and that's what keeps me kind of grounded. I think there was something else I wanted to share in your question about trends and
Oh yeah, how much do you customize,
um,
maybe, right?
customization. I think it's for us. It's important that we actually don't work with templates, right? I mean, we have already like lots of examples, but we actually create a lot from scratch because every business is different, and we kind of take inspiration from different projects. But a lot of the work is done from scratch, and I think that kind of makes us think. And I really don't think we're experts. I don't really see ourselves as experts. We use data to prove stuff. If someone tells us they're something that we don't believe in, we say, okay, I don't think it's the case, but let's not argue about it. Let's look at the data and see what it says, right? So I think nowadays you can run experiments very cheaply. So it's cheaper to run an experiment than argue about something for too long, right? You can just basically prove it, and then everyone's happy. I mean, we had one client who was like convinced that the pricing of the product was too high in Germany, and they've been saying to us every meeting it was a point on the agenda, that the buying power is too low in Germany and the price need to be lower and so on. So okay, and we said, okay, so let's just test it, and like, oh no, we can't change the price of the product, but we tested it in one isolated place in
Yeah.
city, and we found actually, conversion rates were exactly the same as in other parts of
As in
Germany. Even if we reduced product by 50%, we reduced the price by 50%, and it did not change conversion
the
rates at
conversion
all.
rate.
That
Yeah.
that conversation has never came up again.
Yeah.
And it's like it is great, fantastic. We save ourselves so much time, discussing
Yeah.
the same topic, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said you do things from scratch, because sometimes I'm like, am I stupid because I like to kind of like rethink and re-challenge and rebuild, but I think these are my aha moments with each client that I get. And like you said, the more challenging the client, the more I stretch myself and my team, right?
well, it's
Yeah.
it's a. I mean, it sounds inefficient. We are introduced like client classification as well. So every client is classified into, we have three groups of clients. So those who are in this kind of A class, they get much more bespoke stuff, and those who are like lower, they
Yeah,
get
yeah, of course.
slightly
Yes.
more
Yeah.
templated work. But
Yeah.
in the end, I'm so like precious about a lot of things that I want to give them also a very, very good experience. But sometimes, of course, if you spend 1,000 a month on consulting, you cannot expect that someone will
No,
spend
no,
20
that kind of
hours
service
on your project, right? So they kind of classify themselves by their ambition and by
by their
their growth
ambition. Yeah.
potential. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. Thank you so much for confirming all of my suspicions.
Yeah, you're welcome.
um, I don't know if you want to leave us with some final wisdom on where is the hidden data, right? Because we talked about that in our title when we launched this talk. Where do we look for that? Or yeah, some.
Actually, what I remembered now what I wanted to say also
Tell
in the
me.
previous question. So the previous question, what I forgot to mention is the fundamentals. Like I'm a extreme believer in strong fundamentals, and I think that's why I'm quite relaxed about trends. So in my private life, I follow like the principles, let's say investing from Warren Buffett. And if you study Warren, I mean, he's been following the same principles for his last, I don't know, 50, 60 years, right, of his like investment career. So I like that, I mean, a lot, and I think for me these fundamentals of using simple experimentation and and setting up your data correctly, tracking conversions, looking at the role of each channel, like, and then adding innovation on top of it with whatever the trend is, whether it's AI or something, some other tools, or clever marketing and efficient workflows. Then you optimize these workflows to be more efficient, content production or something. I mean, that's for me always the key. I mean, I miss that a lot in companies, and I have not seen many clients. Actually, I have not seen any client yet who came to us. Maybe they don't come to us. Maybe that's maybe other point. But I've not seen a client yet who came to us and they gave us like, okay, here is our analytics account, here is our search console, here is Facebook, and it's kind of well put together. There's so many issues in their setup always, and these are the fundamentals. I mean, if you don't have these fundamentals put in place, I mean, this experimentation, then it's kind of bumpy, and you cannot trust your own data, and then it's kind of house of cards, right? It all falls down one day, and you cannot really scale. So my encouragement would be to everybody to kind of keep it like their simple setup perfect, make the fundamentals really perfect, like make sure your website is indexed by Google, for example, right? Make sure you don't, like simple things like this, right? And it's surprising how often it's not the case, right? And I think then they come and they say, oh, we want growth hacks actually, but then you have to first spend 6 months fixing their problems, and it's not nice, it's
Michael,
much
you
better.
need to give us that list of fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, it's a good place to start to everyone. I mean, you also give me ideas, so thank you for that. I mean, it's the best place to start, really, these fundamentals, and then you can start like scaling, because a lot of people try to scale and they read a book about growth hacking, but in the end we're still like fixing their tracking code on the website, and it's very sad always, because no one wants to do it, right? But
yeah, it's the painful work. No one wants to address that. But thank you so much, Luke. It was, I don't even want to hang up, but it's been an hour, and I think we are going
it was fun.
Yeah, I will definitely hope to host you again for more, and
let's see what the feedback is. We'll hopefully get good feedback. If the feedback is good, then we will measure it.
I'm gonna follow you.
We'll see if it makes sense to have me back. But I love the conversation. Thanks for all your questions, and I hope that was useful.
I really do. Every time I get so many insights, and please give us these fundamentals, and please give us your top 10 books to read, like your top 10 must read, because I know you read a lot. And but thank you so much, and I will now let you enjoy your evening. This is going to be available on Facebook, Twitter as a podcast, YouTube. It's recorded there, LinkedIn, of course, under my profile, and also yours, so people can watch it later.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thanks for having me, and see you soon at the meetup or earlier.
Yes, hopefully. Thank you, Luke. Bye, everyone.
Bye.